Everybody, welcome to session 2 of the 7 Conversational Evangelism Principles. In session 2, we're looking at John chapter 4, the woman at the well. And our big idea is to hang in there, to be persistent, and to go out of your way. To go out of your way and to hang in there. What's happening in this passage, Bucky?
Yeah, Jesus is being willing to be inconvenienced, to put his agenda aside potentially, and walk through an area of the world that a righteous Jew would never find himself in. And that's Jesus traveling through the area of Samaria on his way back from Jerusalem back to Galilee, is his homeland. And he chooses to go right through Samaria where most Jews would go around it. Jesus goes right through it to have a conversation with a woman at the well. He's breaking down so many social, cultural barriers in this chapter 4 conversation. It's amazing to see that what Jesus is willing to do to go after the one. He starts a conversation with this woman. Now, Samaritans were unclean. They were half-breeds, half-Jews. Jews would not get close to them or have any contact with them, let alone a male-female situation where a Jewish male or even a rabbi would ever allow a woman to come that close or be alone with that woman. This was scandalous. And yet Jesus is willing to do this in order for her to find living water at the well. And Jesus is doing so many wonderful things in this conversation.
Right.
He's taking natural things and transitioning them into spiritual conversations like water and other things he's talking about. He's very personal. He's asking her about her story. He's very patient with her. And this is the idea of versus a debate versus a dialogue.
Right.
And many times we think evangelism is about winning a debate, but Jesus is in a dialogue, a loving conversation where he's respecting her culturally, where she's coming from religiously, and having a conversation to open her eyes up so that she can discover who God really is and who the true God is.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think there's 3 tips for me on this and a couple application points. First, just like Bucky said, we need today, you guys, the reason why evangelism has kind of failed for this last generation of millennials is because it has been delivered in a shout you down, soapbox, street corner preacher type of way. We have to redefine expectations just like Jesus did when he did things so graciously. And today in 2019, there's so many opportunities to be incendiary and start a fire, whether socially, politically, sexually, and the debate rages. We have to defy expectations just like Jesus did. We have to be soft, we have to be meek, we have to be humble as we engage in these dialogues. I know that is something I learned the hard way about a week ago. Through our church community, I've been given access to some 20-somethings who are no longer church members, not just here, but anywhere. They grew up in the church, but they walked away when they had some kind of breakdown. And I want to learn. I'm just a voracious consumer of getting an audience with them and wanting to hear what happened. What was the breakdown? How did the church fail you? What hurts do you have? And how also do you view the world now? I want to know so I can learn authentically. And this last week I was dialoguing in a text message conversation. That was probably my first learning, is that you can't have a significant, meaningful moment through text conversation. But eventually, and probably as a result of that, it led to hurt because I was being too intense. And as soon as I realized in the text conversation that things had taken a churn, I kind of asked him, what's going on? Because I wanted to move the conversation from text to coffee, and he even said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in doing that. And I thought, oh man, I've blown it. I've missed some type of important cue here in the conversation. And after several apologies, we kind of reconciled the short-term conflict there. But the learning for me was very, very clear. In our conversations, I need to be willing to be soft, to be meek, to be humble, just like Jesus was. And remember, this is not a debate. This is not a fight. This is not even an argument I need to win. And that's one of the principles, one of the tips that Jesus shows us is he asks questions. In this conversation, which goes on and on and on, he asks questions, and personal questions. That's kind of the second or third tip that I want to give you, is that as you have these dialogues with people, it's so easy for the conversation to run away about them or they, or about theories or about policies way out at arm's length. Jesus keeps this so near and so personal and so direct for the woman. He wants to talk about the men in her life. He wants to talk about her relationships, the things she holds dear. And we have to take that cue from Jesus' playbook as we dialogue in these conversations.
Yeah, and I think it's taken a long-term view versus a short-term win, like we said. We don't have to have one conversation and convert that person to one conversation. If this is a friendship, this is a loving dialogue, it's more of a marathon than a sprint. And so there'll be different touch points. I actually have a millennial in my workplace who's not a woman at the well, but she's the woman behind the computer. She does our books, our accounting. And as I see her in the workplace on and off, God conversations open up, and we've had several opportunities to have God conversations, but it's been a 1.5-year conversation. She's come to church once. I finally got her to open up the scriptures a little bit and read them, and it's all about discovering and asking questions. And so I don't go into the meeting every time I see her that, oh my gosh, I've got to have an answer today, I've got to have the conversation. I just keep praying that as her curiosity opens up, I'll be there with the right answer at the right time to love her and help her take her next steps. And so it's a long-term view versus a short-term situation.
Yeah, the other thing that I think about in this story as we wind down to application and action items for you this week, first of all, just to piggyback off what you said, Bucky, persistence. This is a long conversation. Jesus hangs in there.
Yeah.
We've talked with our staff and with our lay leaders, and we've heard from you guys very loud and clear. Look at Ben, Bucky, I've had 1, 2, 3 conversations with my neighbor. They're not coming. They're not budging. They actually seem angry still. They're still on the defensive. And we would just say, hang in there. It could be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 conversations before you have even some semblance of a breakthrough. Take a note, again, from Jesus' play here, and hang in there for the long haul. Be persistent. The other thing that I would challenge you in as I read the flip side of the story, now this is a stranger. Jesus was comfortable and confident talking to anybody, and just like we can be comfortable and confident talking to a stranger, someone on the street or a new barista or someone at the market, those are almost like the low-hanging fruit opportunities, and we got to start somewhere. That's beautiful and awesome. What does our prayer journey look like for those who are closer to us, where the stakes seem a little bit higher? Who are those family members, coworkers who you see every day, those friends you care really deeply for, that God might be calling you to listen for their needs? Because every single God conversation and its salvation or big God moment, God invading their soul, happens with a need. How is God maybe inviting you to have a personal inroad conversation with someone who's even closer to you that might be more difficult?
Yeah, I think it's the humility to focus on the other person's needs, to put ourselves in their shoes, like Jesus put himself in the woman's shoes and directed the conversation to the point of need. It really was her relational pain that Jesus wanted to touch upon with his grace and his love. And that's where we're headed with the Holy Spirit. Where's the need? Where's the pain? Where's the opportunity? And it's in that humility, when we're willing to listen and love, that God opens the conversation. And so the prayer is, Lord, inconvenience me.
Yeah.
Lord, help me to understand. Help me to be willing to go through the Samaria to the well in my workplace, in my community, and have a God conversation with the one that you love.
That's right. So we're praying with you. We're joined with you again in practicing this. That's the key thing, to move from a workbook to actual practice this week. Consider changing your tactic. If you've been doing one thing for several years and maybe it's just no fruit and you haven't had a breakthrough, consider asking different questions. Consider a different atmosphere. Yeah. Consider a different text. Consider a different aspect of your story. Change the script and see how that happens to impact someone's life.
Yeah, God's going to use you in a powerful way as you pray for him to open a door to inconvenience this week.
That's right.